Here's a brief but annoying message to let you know that you could have first heard this episode 9 months ago if you were a subscriber to our Iron Filing Society Patreon offering.
For the price of a pint and a St Clement's each month, you can get up to 4 episodes a week, 9 months before the rest of the world gets them. Early access to regular episodes, lots of other marvellous benefits, and there's absolutely no adverts or brief but annoying messages like this that will get right on your ticks.
Find out more and subscribe now at tftimemachine.com/ironfilings.
Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, this is it!
This is Stuff Like Time Machine. I am Andy Hotbody Dawson. Pow, pow, pow.
I'm Sam Nifton Delaney, so what?
Welcome along. It's the beginning of a brand new Odyssey. And we are going to look at the life and times of arguably the greatest Greek pop star of the 1970s. I can't think of a better one. And it is, of course, Demis Roussos.
Yeah. He was very much like the George Michael of his day.
Yeah, he was. He was. George Michael probably lifted a lot from Demis.
Well, he probably, I see him go, until I saw Demis Roussos, I never thought it'd be possible for a Greek man to have pop success all over the world. And I'd never, when I switched on telly in the 70s, I never saw anyone who looked like me. And I never thought it was a realistic dream to be a pop star. And then one day I switched on and I saw Demis Roussos and he was doing a skit with Basil Brush. And it was then that I realised that my destiny was in pop music.
Yeah. I mean, we might not even get as far as the Basil Brush thing today because there's some background to look at, which will involve, I'll give you some of the ingredients, the general strike in France in 1968, and also a plane hijacking stroke hostage situation.
Great.
Which I think we need to look at before we even get to Basil Brush.
He's had a rich and varied life, hasn't he?
We might not even get as far as either of those things I've just mentioned because, you know how it goes on this podcast. To Demis Roussos, I don't remember the first time, but I remember being aware of him when his biggest hit, Forever and Ever, was at the top of the charts in 1976. Was it 1976? Yeah, number one. It was, fucking hell. It was actually recorded in 1973 on his second album, also called Forever and Ever. But the song was included on the 1976 EP, which was called The Roussos Phenomenon.
Great name for an EP. Bold, isn't it? What do you want to call it?
Yeah.
Just call it The Roussos Phenomenon.
For
self-fulfilling prophecy, innit?
And yeah, got to number one in the UK in 1976. So I was like 4, and when you see this character appear on the screen, this
like
hairy,
a Greek giant haystacks.
Greek giant haystacks in a fucking what
kaftan.
you call it? A kaftan. I know it's a kimono there. Kimono's a very different thing.
Yeah.
The thought of Demis Roussos in a kimono is a frightening thought.
Yeah.
But he looked like a monster, basically. Why is there a monster singing on the
He looked
telly?
like he could be a baddie from a science fiction movie like Star Trek or something like that, the leader of a gang of baddie aliens.
And everyone thought his name was Dennis and not Demis because Demis is a name that we wouldn't have been familiar with back then. So it's just Denis Roussos to the rest of us. Denis Roussos, born 1946, Greek singer, songwriter, and musician. He is best remembered for his work in the progressive music act Aphrodite's Child. And Aphrodite's
Sounds
Child
very
probably
strong Prince vibes to that.
Yeah, they're probably worth a deep dive on their own because one of the members was Vangelis, who we've talked about.
What a pairing!
Is a musician of interest.
A musician of interest. He's on the list.
Yeah. Their third and final album, 666, is an ambitious concept album inspired by the Book of Revelation. And I feel as though I need to sit down and listen to that album very, very soon.
Yeah. I was unaware of their existence until we started this.
So there's a bit more going on than just a bit of Greek crooning, as on Forever and Ever. So he joined Aphrodite's Child with Vangelis and Lucas Siderus, and they were successful in France and other parts of Europe from 68 to 72. It says here on Wikipedia, because of course the Wikipedia page is our source.
It's the basis of all of our deep dives.
For London. They set off for London to break into the international music scene, but were turned back at Dover due to visa problems. See, pre-EU, and this is the shit that went on, and now we're all in there again. We were denied Demis Roussos and Aphrodite's Child on these shores back in 1968, whenever it was, and now who knows who's knocking on the door at Dover, coming from who knows wherever, wanting to entertain us, and we won't let them in.
That what's his name now? Richard, is it Tice or something? Like the guy who's
Richard Tice, yeah.
Is that his name? He funds the whole Brexit campaign and all that sort of stuff. He's been fuming because some people waved EU flags at the last night of the proms.
I saw that, yeah.
Right.
There's been a few of them kicking off. Lord Ashcroft
he says they should be banned, and they should be very unpatriotic to wave that flag.
Right.
Which, it's like, how's it unpatriotic to wave the flag of another country? You're not saying...
It's an organisation of countries.
It's an organisation, for fuck's sake. What next? You're going to ban us wearing fucking band T-shirts? Do you know what I mean?
I thought these people were into freedom of speech.
I know.
And all that.
I got him, he's like a billionaire, right? And I got him on the much missed...
Millionaire, I reckon. I don't think he's got billions.
I got him as a guest on the much missed permanently rested Sam Delaney's news thing. Yeah. And I said, you're always going on about leaving Europe. You say you speak for the common man. What do you know about the common man? And he was like, I know, and they do all that. I go around, I speak to people. And you go, oh yeah, speak to people, do you? And so what I did was I put his common man credentials to the test, and I made him answer questions while he ate Monster Munch against the clock, right? Then I made him play darts. Then I got one of them punch bag things, and so those ones you get at the arcade that measures how hard you can punch. He did punch quite hard, actually, to be fair.
Ooh.
And but then the best thing I did was I got him to handle ferrets, and that really threw him. He wasn't expecting it, but I'd hired 2 ferrets, and they came in, and I said, "All right, see if you can fucking run these up your trouser leg." And he said, "I'm not putting them up my trousers." I said, "All right, well, just see if you can handle them for a minute." It was game. He gave it a go, but he shat himself because he wasn't used to ferret play. But one thing about ferrets, I don't know if you've had many dealings with them, they they're lovely and cuddly and friendly. They fucking stink, mate. Unbelievable stench off of them. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking online for more information about that.
You'll be able to find the video of him doing that.
I was going to say it should be on there. It was an episode called Worst Terrorist Ever. Sam explains why the Westminster terrorist was just a horrible dickhead. The panel talk over the demise of neighbours, and we get Leave EU founder Richard Tice to put a ferret up his trousers.
Yeah, that's it.
And among the guests that day were the mighty Paul Danan.
Oh, lovely. This is what the people want, mate. That's television right there.
Oh, it was
what you just described.
Completely.
Neighbours, ferrets, terrorism. Ticking all the boxes there, mate.
Yeah. Bring it back.
No, fuck that. You remember you used to come and work on it, and I remember you had to go fucking hell, up that big tower, up a fucking lift, just standing around waiting for the dinner. You're like, what are we going to have for lunch?
Yeah, check in and get a pass and everything at the desk.
It was such a pain in the arse.
God.
And also the people who worked there in that building where we made it, a lot of them didn't like us because we were outsiders coming in to make our show. So there was often a hostile vibe.
Do you feel uncomfortable?
Sometimes, yeah. So all things considered, don't bring it back. But it is on YouTube, so you can.
Yeah, have a look, dive in.
Yeah.
So they were turned back at Dover due to visa problems. They retreated to Paris, Aphrodite's child, where they decided to stay, signing a record deal there with Philips Records. We'll just stay here. We'll stay in Paris and sign a record deal with Philips Records. And their first recording sessions were delayed by the general strike of May 1968, which I'm surprised is something we haven't talked about before on this podcast. I don't think we have.
The what?
And it was the riots in Paris in 1968.
Very interesting stories about that. Like, I know you're not a fan of the Stone Roses. So we won't get into their music.
In the riots of 68?
Well, it inspired the whole look of what became the Manchester scene. Right. Because John Squire watched a documentary. I think John Squire and Ian Brown watched a documentary about the summer of 68 and the uprising. There was a few across Europe. The Paris one was like the sort of the eye of the storm, wasn't it? And they watched it, and the students had these feather cut haircuts, right?
Right.
That went over their ears in the style that became the sort of Manchester indie look. And they wore sort of like, I don't think they wore baggy jeans, but they were dressed in a certain way that appealed to them. And until that, if you see old pictures of the Stone Roses before they got famous, they were kind of weird gothy band in silk shirts and gelled back hair. Mm-hmm. And they saw this, and they saw these French students. They thought they looked really sharp. And then they watched the documentary, and they thought it was really cool what they were doing. And what the police did was they came in with tear gas, and what these French students knew somehow was the way that you could repel the effects of tear gas was to suck on a lemon, right?
Yes.
So they all had these lemons with them that they were sucking on. And anyway, the Stone Roses, after that night, thought, right, we got to start fucking dressing like those French students. I've just realised what a bunch of cunts we look like in these fucking flowery shirts and gelled back hair. We should look like those cunts. Right, so if you look at the cover of the Stone Roses album, which, again, like, you're not a big fan of, lots of people like it, and it's got that sort of Jackson Pollock painting, but you'll also notice it's got the French tricolour painted at the side, and it has lemons all over it as well. Yeah. Right, it's got slices of lemons, and that is a piece of art that it is his sort of tribute to or interpretation of the riots of 68. And there's a song on that album called Bye Bye Bad Man. And the whole song is a song written from the perspective of a writing French student towards an aggressive French policeman who is the bad man.
Yeah. I find that weird then, because one of the first things about the Stone Roses that really annoyed me was an interview I saw with them. It used to be this programme on ITV during the night about 3 a.m. And it was called Transmission.
Night Cunts.
But it had all the indie stuff on. Right. And there wasn't anything. There was maybe Snub TV on BBC Two.
Yeah.
And this thing, it was called Rockin' in the UK. Then it changed its name to Transmission. And I used to wake up in the middle of the night at 2:30 when it was on, so I could record onto VHS the best things from it, rather than record the whole thing. Because I used to make compilation VHS tapes, stuff off the telly. So
did anyone ever record over it with the Everly Brothers live in concert?
No, thank God. It was all well protected.
You didn't have a younger brother.
I've still got a box of them over in this corner of this room, which I'm going to digitise at some point. Anyway, and the Stone Roses were on just after before the first album came out, I think, and they just sat there with their fucking arms folded and their heads down like this, and they were like, I haven't really got anything to say. I don't know, I just don't really like any other musicians or groups or anything. And they were just mumbling and incoherent. And I thought, well, you're not going to start any riots, are you?
No.
You pair of fucking...
Well, they didn't. I mean, they perhaps you might conclude from that they were voyeurs, right? They loved to sit on the sidelines watching the riots on a documentary years after they'd happened.
Sucking on lemons,
and they'll do a painting about it and write a song about it.
A bit like that cunt off GB News and Coast, that little cunt with the beard. Neil Oliver, who's recently been calling for revolution on Twitter. Anyone up for a revolution then?
Jalapeño.
Did you like... did we talk about Martin Daubney's Brassai news meltdown? Do you know Martin Daubney? Did you ever work with him?
I never worked with him, but when I used to work at Front Magazine, which was right down the pecking order under Loaded when he was the editor. Yeah. Which, possibly quite rightly, Front magazine was all right back then. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.
The underdogs. He was a regular laughing stock around the office.
Yeah.
Because some people had worked with him, and he was just regarded as a clown. This is like 17 years ago.
Yeah, I was working in IPC when he was around. He didn't have the best reputation, but then
Daubs.
Years later,
they used to call him Daubs.
Yeah, he was very much self-styled though. Like you got the strong impression he'd spread that nickname.
How did you call me Daubs, lads?
Yeah,
yeah.
But the funny thing is, I knew him by reputation, but then years later, I met him through he'd pop up on Sky News when I did it, and doing like punditry, and then I think he came on my radio show a couple of times. I met him, and he was, I don't know whether he'd been humbled by whatever, but he was very softly spoken, right? And and very sort of like polite, and just sort of like almost a bit philosophical in the things he said. And I thought, maybe he's that was my impression of him. He did start
that. He kind of went on a bit of a feminist tangent after he left Loaded.
Right,
that was his first bit of shtick. It was kind of like, sexism and everything's really bad. And I admit I was part of that culture, but now I've grown up and I've got a daughter, like them people say, and I've realised that it's a really bad thing. So I'm trying to speak out against it. Yeah, can I have my money now?
Yeah. So he was quite like that, and then next thing I know, he's like become a MEP, like a UKIP MEP. And again, obviously the opposite of my political leanings, but I thought, all right, whatever he wants to do, right? And I've got to say, right, I'm not here to defend Martin Dorman, because I have seen him say a lot of sort of pretty horrible and bigoted things on social media and whatnot. But that meltdown was so bad and got so much attention, I thought to myself, fuck, I actually feel bad for what he must be going through.
Yeah, I did as well.
Because I thought, okay, it's easy to laugh and no one likes GB News, and we were like, wanker. But it was so bad, I couldn't laugh. I just thought, poor bloke. Maybe not. Some people are thick-skinned and they can ride that shit out. But, me personally, I was thinking, if that was me and there was that many people fucking delighting in me making a big fuck up, I would be a fucking mess. So I felt. So if you're listening, Martin, stay strong. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
If you're listening, Martin, fuck off. Yeah. I mean, him and other of his ilk were the ones who piled onto me over the Michael Gove thing, so I've got no sympathy whatsoever.
Oh, really? Oh, well, yeah, fuck him. I didn't know. You could have told me that earlier before I started being vaguely sympathetic.
Well, I did feel slightly sorry, because you think as well, you think back to people who've been properly affected by things like that on social media and in the public eye, and they've harmed themselves, let's say. You know what I mean? To varying degrees.
Absolutely.
And it's affected them permanently.
It's horrible. I mean, I've had nowhere near the same scale, but when I talk about the pharmacist thing, it's funny and it is a laugh, because it's like, imagine that, getting bullied by a load of pharmacists. But at the time, it really fucking rocked me in a way I didn't think it would, because it was so relentless. And to be honest, it was helpful having this podcast. So I talk to you and the listeners, and it kind of like, in a way, you make light of it, and it's like you can see the funny side. You have to. But it was, and it's nowhere near the same level of public scrutiny. It was just one particular group. But I don't know how you felt over the Gove thing, but I was like, it fucked with my head. And I thought about that when I thought about him going through it. I thought, well, he's a bit of a cunt, but I wouldn't wish that on anyone, because it's fucking horrible.
True.
Yeah.
I'd maybe wish it on him. Maybe. A little bit.
I would wish it on some people, maybe him, but most people, possibly, no way.
One of them. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, before I say that, it was incredibly funny.
It was so funny. That's one thing. We've almost got away from the real point of it was, and it's not about hating on him. It's just like, it is so funny. In fact, if I was him, I would really try to own that, right? Yeah. Because it's so funny. You just gotta fucking own it. Because breaking news is difficult, right? I mean, look, you and I have both been on air at Talk Sport when suddenly Port Vale have gone 1-0 up in an FA Trophy first round, and they're in your ear saying, you've got to announce the goal now, right?
Yeah.
And you just got to you're in the middle of interviewing, say, the saxophonist from UB40, right, about his love of Villa. And they're going, there's been a goal at Port Vale. You need to announce it now. And I'm going, if I can just stop you there, and then you lose your notes. So you go, if I can just stop you there, saxophone man, stop, Aston Villa, Port Vale, goal, it's a goal, it's fast-moving goals, and I'm the man saying the goals. UB40, red wine. Oh, it's all fucked. Where are my notes? And that's not even with a camera pointing at you.
Yeah. But ultimately, Martin Daubney is someone who just pretends to have opinions for money. That's all he is. He doesn't believe the things he says.
There's a lot of that about, but you can get yourself into a mess. If you want to do that, you'll get yourself into a mess.
You get addicted to the grift, and then you just keep going down whichever road it is that you think will keep you relevant and in the public eye. And the other one is Mark Dolan, who used to be kind of a comedian on Channel 4, and that Balls of Steel and everything.
Yeah, I knew him and got on with him really well, but sometimes these people harbour these opinions and you have no idea. I mean, I'm naive. I float around, especially in the media. Especially in the media, it's quite like a liberal world. Do you know what I mean? I've always worked in the media, and I can be naive because, I suppose I went to university. Most of the people you meet there, like-minded, that I met and you hang around with. And then I went into the media, and I sort of assume that people have the same opinions as me, and then you're continually reminded that's not the case, not least by election results, right, or newspaper sales. But you're just floating around, and then both of them, not so much Daubney, I didn't know, but Mark Dolan, I had a lot of dealings with over the years, and he was always very charming, and I had not a fucking single clue in my head that he had such extreme, what I would call, maybe some people wouldn't call them extreme, but to me, I was like, fucking hell, mate, when he was cutting up the vaccine, the mask and all of that stuff.
That's what I'm saying here, he hasn't. I went to see, Paul Sinner, the comedian, who's on the Chase as well. I went to see him at the Edinburgh Festival, and he called out Dolan during it, and he sang a little song about him as well. And he said, I've been a good friend of Mark Dolan for 20 plus years, and he is not the person that he pretends to be on GB News. He's pretending to have those opinions for money. He says he talks about people who eat quinoa and fucking the metropolitan elite when you'll see him sipping a latte at a fucking farmer's market in North London on a Sunday
that's
morning.
The thing. He's quite a posh sort of liberal establishment guy.
He's just lying for money. That's all he's doing.
Yeah. So, well, I suppose live by the sword, die by the sword. Then, if you're going to just make, I mean, you got to have more respect for people who are just fucking that is what they legitimately and authentically feel and think. And then you might go, well, I don't agree, but whatever. You got different opinions to me.
And Sinner was saying, well, we're not friends anymore. I can't be around somebody who behaves like that. So he's sold out friendships, whatever, to go down that road that he's going down. But he's on GB News 5 nights a week, so I hope the money's good.
It's probably decent. I mean,
Should we do it?
It'll keep things ticking over. Well,
Should we approach them?
I had I can't remember if I've talked about this, but I had an approach from GB News, which is not almost any cunt who's ever been on a news show got an approach, especially near the beginning. Not to present, but to go on and do a weekly slot, punditry. And the only reason I kind of took the call was it was like a friend of mine who I'd worked with a lot in the past. And actually, the producer I spoke to was really nice. Don't think she was particularly right wing. She, the people working there, just their TV industry people making a living, behind the scenes. Do you know what I mean? There's not much work. You've got to take your work. And she was fine. And she totally was cool with me, going, look, I really don't like the channel at all, and blah blah blah. And my missus said, well, just tell them no. And I said, well, I take this call because it's a mate. But I'll take the call just to tell them no, but to explain my reasons for saying no. And I'm not going to be condescending and go, well, actually, I don't agree with what you're doing. Because like I always say, these people, the behind-the-scenes people are just making their living. And, not all of us have a luxury to pick and choose. So I said it to her, and she said, okay, is there any amount of money that we could offer? And, this is a big confession, but I'd say, my wife was listening, and she had said to me, and I'd said as a joke... I'd said as a joke.
Fingers up.
Yeah, no, I'd said as a joke, oh, maybe I'll just ask them for a silly amount of money. And she said, no, don't. She went, don't even put a figure on it because that is too much. She went, just fucking leave it. You don't need this shit, blah, blah, blah. And they said, is there an amount of money? So I said, yes. I want you to pay me £5,000 every week.
Minute.
Right. And they said, it's a half-hour slot. And I said, that's right.
Yeah.
I want £5,000 for a half-hour slot. And I'm going to give half of it away. I'm going to give half of it away to the sort of vulnerable, the groups representing the vulnerable groups that you demonise. Yeah. And she just laughed and went, fair enough, I'll run it upstairs. She was a problem like, fair enough, I'll run it past the cunts upstairs and see what comes back. And I went, you do that. And she was perfectly nice and she thought it was funny. Yeah. Like, she could tell I was taking the piss. But she did ask and she came back and said, like, yeah, no way. Which obviously I was relieved by because, to be honest, if someone put $5,000 in front of your fucking nose for a half-hour job a week, you probably would think twice. But, you know, I know someone who's very left-wing who goes on there regularly. I just know him through, like, he used to do punditry on my radio show and stuff. And he's very left-wing. He's known for being left-wing. He's a journalist. And he goes on there every fucking week. He's got, like, a regular gig. And I go to him. And actually, I didn't ask him, why'd you do that? I said, I saw you were doing it when we were chatting. And he went, yeah, he's a young lad. And he goes, and he just went, yeah, my attitude is I'm getting paid decent money. I need money. I need work. There's only so much work going around. That's a significant impact. He goes, and I go on and they never edit what I say. And so therefore, I feel that it's a panel show with him and like 3 other people, all of whom are very much to the right of him. So he's going on there, say my piece, give the counter argument, get paid for it, fine.
Because
I went, all right, fair enough.
If he doesn't, somebody else will, or they won't have somebody like that at all. Yeah. So, why not? Maybe you should have done it.
I mean, I think it's fair enough. No, I wouldn't do it, but I've got my own reasons, like going back to that other stuff to do the pharmacists and all that. I no longer feel comfortable fucking... The world is, as we both know... No, as we both know, it's a fucking dangerous world nowadays, which it wasn't when I was doing more broadcast work. And it's like, I'm not built anymore for the fucking cut and thrust and the criticism that can come your way. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. Totally. I'm nearly 50. I just don't. It's just, when I was younger, I'd think, fuck it, nothing bothers me. But it's hard. People are mean, and you don't. And also, you're encouraged to have extreme opinions, which I don't have.
Yeah, you say you were younger and you didn't care as much, but also there wasn't the network available for people to just attack.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably say...
You become this week's target on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. I probably said all sorts of absurd, like, shit in my time back in the day when there wasn't fucking Twitter or anything else. And all that came of it was there might have been the odd cunt watching it at home or listening at home and going, what a cunt, to themselves or to whoever was sitting next to them. And that'd be it. And I'd never have to know about it. And that suited me fine. The thing is, people have got too much of a fucking voice, Andy. No, it's just not worth it, is it? It's not worth it. You've got to do a cost-value thing to, like, everything you take on. And there's so many things that are, like, in the media now that there's just too much fucking cost that it never justifies the value.
No, you're right. And we will continue with this low-level, under-the-radar podcast for as long as we can get away with it, until we accidentally get cancelled or become... Yeah,
until someone actually starts fucking transcribing what we say.
Yeah. We'll just delete all the episodes soon. Start again. We'll leave it there then, I reckon, because we are at a point where we were going to talk about the strikes and the civil unrest.
We went into a fucking mad tangent. Started with the Stone Roses, then we're talking about Martin Daubney, then we're talking about the state of media, and so I apologise if you found it dull, but we will get back to talking about tits and digging and animals on the next episode.
We'll get back to the 1968 riots in Paris next week.
It's part 2 of
the Roussos Odyssey. Because you've got to get a full picture, haven't you?
Yeah.
I reckon. All right, then. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. And au revoir!
Au revoir!